right. Well, we got the 7 o'clock hour. We're getting ready to get started. Certainly want to welcome all of you that are here, those that are with us live today, also those that are joining us on our Zoom. And we certainly always want to welcome those that will be seeing this on our YouTube channel. Welcome all of you to our Friday night Bible study. We're still dealing with the strong delusions, being set free from those strong delusions. We're going to be covering some information. I really wanted to get into the one world religion, but as I was preparing, I wanted to get a chance to cover some history, because if you don't understand the history of religion in this world, it's going to be difficult to understand why so many people are going to end up in the one world religion, following the devil and his beast, and ending up on the wrong side of this camp. They're going to end up on the wrong side of the whole shebang, and that's not good. Because we're talking about the vast majority of the world's population are going to be following the beast and the devil. So I wanted to give some history on that to really get a chance to get some explanation as to why so many people are going to do that. So we're going to get a chance to go into that and get a chance to share some information. I think it'll be very helpful as we go through the timeline on all of this. So with that, let's go ahead and pray and get right into this lesson. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher kishanu v'mitzvotav v'sivanu la'asuk v'devri Torah. Blessed you, Yahweh our Elohim, King of the universe, who sanctifies us with your commandments and command us to engross ourselves in the words of your Torah. And we always count that an honor and a privilege to do just that. And so with that, we're going to go ahead and share our screen and get right into this very important lesson today. All right, so should be seeing my screen now. All right, we're talking about breaking free from strong delusions, part 4. We're going to be looking at the history of religion leading into one world religion, right? History of religion that's going to be leading into one world religion. So we'll be covering more of the one world religion on next week. This will be a foundation and a springboard for that study. All right. And always, for those of you that are seeing this on YouTube, I just want to give you a reminder to do all those YouTubey things, right? Get a chance to go to Dr. Russ E. Hoover on YouTube and make sure you hit that subscribe, hit the thumbs up when you watch the video, hit the bell of notification so you can be notified when we're dropping our new videos, and also make certain that you're leaving comments. We get a chance to respond to those comments. I love getting a chance to share and interact with our listeners. So get a chance to do all those YouTube things, and we greatly appreciate that. Keeps us motivated to continue on with this great work. So as we review the book of Revelation, we find that a day is coming when the entire world will be united in religious worship. The entire world. And let's take a look at this now in the book of Revelation, chapter 13, starting at verse 2. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. The dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world, notice this now, and all the world wondered after the beast, and they worshipped the dragon, which gave power to the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And again, in Revelation chapter 13, verse 8, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. This is very serious. However, the world's citizens are directing their worship towards the wrong individuals. As we indicated earlier, the entire planet is uniting in worship, but their worship is being directed towards the wrong individuals. So who is that? The devil and his seed. And they are not worthy of worship. More importantly, all of these people who worship the beast will miss eternal life, with the Most High Elohim, the creator of heaven and earth. And that is not where you want to end up. This entire human experience, from Adam and Eve until now, is all about finding the people who will dwell with the Most High Elohim in eternity future. The decision regarding who will make it is Elohim's. It is not ours. It is his decision. He sets the standard, and it is found in his word. But the question is, how will they get to this place? How will the citizens of the world come to worship Satan? We will begin the process of answering these questions in this lesson. As we continue this lesson, I want to review several key points that we established from part 1 of this series, Breaking Free from Strong Delusions. So we're looking at many religious people will be rejected. And why is that? The first point is found in Matthew 7, starting at verse 21. These individuals were calling on Adonai. They prophesied, they cast out devils, and did many wonderful works in his name. Yet the master said, I never knew you. Point 2 in Proverbs 14, there was a way that seemed right, yet its end was the way of death. This person was basing their decisions on misinformation. Point 3, Matthew 7:13 gave an instruction to enter in at the narrow gate. And Yeshua gave the reason. For wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leads to destruction. Then he gives another clue. And there are many who go into destruction by the way of the wide gate and the broad way. In other words, he's letting people know, do not follow the crowd. And then the fourth point I want to get from Matthew 7:21 is that he said, not everyone who says to me, Adonai, Adonai, shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father in heaven. I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. So in other words, you got a lot of people who are going to different religious facilities. They're all caught up in their religion, but they're not practicing their religion according to his instruction. And so he's going to say, depart from me. And the sad part is, some of these people are dedicated to death. I mean, you got people that are strapping on bombs, going into buildings, giving their life up for what they believe. And that's some serious dedication. But the problem is you're dedicated to the wrong thing, and you're going to end up with the wrong result. They're being taught that they're going to be living with a harem of women if they should give their lives in a suicide mission. That's going to be a wrong conclusion, because once the word is revealed, they're going to find out that they made the wrong choice. And so man can kind of trick you into doing things by giving you these false philosophies. But the truth is found in the scriptures, in the Bible. So the main points to glean from these verses: many religious people will not make it into the kingdom of Elohim. You're going to have people, religious people, just like these, disappointed when judgment day comes, faithful to their churches, going and hearing a sermon every Sunday, but they're going to end up on the wrong side of this situation. Secondly, you're going to have a road to the kingdom that is narrow path, right? The road to the kingdom is a narrow path that very few will find. So that's letting you know it's not a large group of people that's going to be finding this situation. You can't be looking to be a part of the masses, because the masses are making bad choices and they're going to end up with a wrong destination. We must align ourselves with his word completely and without additions or subtractions, because the road is narrow. It's not a wide gate, it's a narrow path, right? And then third, only those who do the will of the Father found in his word will make it into his kingdom. So many are extremely loyal to man-made religions and doctrines which will be rejected by the Father. In fact, when you look at the Catholic Church, they value the word of the Pope equal to or greater than the scriptures. And so he can change his mind about topics, every week if he wants to. But it's going to yield a negative result because the word of Elohim has a final authority, not a man, not a sinner. And that's all he is. He's a sinner. He needs to be saved just like everybody else. He is not the Most High's representative on this earth. So remember, our foundational understanding of Satan's working in this world, and these are critical. Let's get these points. Satan deceives the whole world. The whole world. As I said before, based on that verse of scripture alone, if I didn't have clear understanding, I wouldn't go to bed that night until I got an understanding. What is it that's going to allow the devil to deceive the whole world? I'd want to get an answer to that question. He does not stand in truth. And when he speaks a lie, he speaks from his own resources. Why? Because he's a father of lies. It's all he knows is to lie. So Satan, again, is the god of this world. And he's blinding the minds of those who are perishing. So you got people that are living in this world. They're walking around with blindfolds on and don't even know it. They're getting ready to walk off a cliff, don't even know it. Because the devil sold them a bill of goods and they think it's okay to live the way they're living because there's not going to be any consequence. But the scripture don't teach that. But he wants people living according to his law. He has a law. It's a very simple law. Do as thou wilt. In other words, do whatever you want to do. It's going to be all right. No worries. You want to rape that child? No worry. You want to get in the trafficking of humans? No worries. You want to be in powerful positions and use your power to manipulate people into sex and all kinds of different things? No worries. Do as thou wilt. That's the devil's philosophy. When everything is said and done, you're going to find out that all your will that was against the Father's will is going to yield you a negative result. Satan transforms himself into an angel of light. So he wants to give people the impression that he's leading you to light. He's leading you to truth, but he has no truth in him. And this is one of the worst ones, in my opinion. Satan has ministers who preach and teach about Messiah, but they're actually ministers for his deception. And one of the things you're going to find about religions, the people who are at the top, they're the insiders, and they know the truth about what they're doing. You look at the Masonics, for example, which is one of the oldest religions on the planet. They have all these different levels, all these different degrees. But you don't find out the real truth about the fact they worship Lucifer or the devil until you get all the way to the 33rd degree. So it's only the people at the very top that knows the real heart of what it is they're worshiping. And that's been the way, that's been the trend since the Tower of Babel, right? Since the Tower of Babel, that has been the way they've operated. They've kept the truth away from the masses and try to get them really caught up in lies. So he has these ministers who preach and teach about Messiah, but they're actually ministers of his deception. And finally, the devil is our adversary. He walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he can devour. So if you're not vigilant and sound-minded in the word of Yahweh, he can very likely devour you. So as we pursue this study of one world religion, and we're laying this foundation with the history of religion, we want to make sure you understand that there's a lot of questions that's got to be answered. This is one of the reasons why I'm going back into the history of religion as we lay this foundation for this one world religion. There are major questions got to be answered. One of the first questions, is there only one way to Elohim? Or are there many ways to him? Now, this is the question, and if you hear people talk today, they'll tell you there's many ways. Oprah is really one of the ones that spearheaded this whole idea of many ways. Now you've got other pastors that are on her show, talking about, I believe there's only one way. Jesus is the way, but there's many ways to Jesus. So they're still basically saying there's many ways. But you're not going to come through Hare Krishna. You're not going to come through Buddha. You're not going to come through all these other forms of religion all these other forms of doctrine, and find your way into the place that you want to be. You're going to end up in the wrong location. Your GPS is off, when you found these other people. All right, there's only one way. There's only one way. But we gotta answer these questions and make it clear. Another question: do we all worship the same God? When I go into the Buddhist temple, right? When I go into Hare Krishna's temple, and all these others, am I still worshiping the same God? Are we all part of the same family? And this is one of the things that's going to lead people to serve the devil, because they're trying to bring all these religions under one umbrella. And that's going to be the downfall, because they're not all the same. There's one that stands alone. We're going to make that plain. So do we all worship the same God, just by different names? We're going to answer that question. So to answer this, let's start at the beginning of the mystery of religions of the world. And when the Most High called out a chosen people to worship him in truth. As we get this foundation laid in these two areas, it's going to really help you to understand the answers to these various questions. So from the book of Genesis, we find the following. We're going to create a timeline for you to help you to understand how these different things develop from the very beginning. So the first thing that happens is creation. In the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth, right? And from there, man was actually living in direct communion and relationship with our Creator. Adam and Eve would walk with Elohim in the cool of the day. Elohim literally showed him where the good gold was. And so they were fellowshipping every day until temptation showed up and man fell into sin. So that caused a separation, which led to the death of man. Now, the death was not only physical, but it was a spiritual death as well that caused a disconnection from Yahuwah. So that's the problem. Because at this point now, you have Elohim and you have man, and they're separate, walking on two separate planes. They used to walk in the same plane, which was a spiritual plane, but now that relationship has been broken. So we got to understand that. And you have a lot of people that say, we're all the children of God, right? You have people saying that. We're all the children of God, but that's not true. We're all Elohim's creation, but we're not all his people. We're not all his children. There's a separation between those who are his and those who are not. So that's a deception of the devil, to make people believe just being born in this world, you're automatically part of his family. But it's just the opposite. And because of Adam's sin, every man born of woman is born in sin, shaped in iniquity, and separated from the Father. So we need a solution for that. And we have to have a solution for the sin problem that can bring us back to the Most High Elohim. This is the problem. We are no longer in a direct relationship with Yah. That's broken. So what came next was a prophecy of the solution for that. That was found in Genesis 3:15. And very simply put, when Yeshua comes, he's going to strike the head of the serpent, and that serpent's head is going to strike his heel. It's going to be the end of his power and ability to destroy man. Once that happens, we can be free from his clutches. But we got to make a decision to do that.
That's it.
Right? It doesn't just happen, right? The door is open, but you got to walk through it. So after this, man begins to multiply on the earth. After the fall of man, they just began to multiply. Then fallen angels began to take wives of the daughters of men, impregnated them, and then giants began to be born on the earth. So they had children with these women, and wickedness really began to grow in the world like never before. There's actually a verse of scripture that says that all flesh began to sin. All flesh was corrupted. Go ahead.
And in the Apocrypha, it reads that these angels showed them things that they weren't supposed to know.
Absolutely true.
About iron, about different metals and astrology and different things like that. So we think things just happen, but they happen because they were instructed.
Correct. Absolutely. The devil, you got to understand what his goal is. And we talked about it in previous lessons. He wants to destroy the Most High creation. He wants he wants to destroy mankind, and he wants to destroy Elohim's creation. And so one of the things he did, as Terry was sharing, is that he really gave them a lot of knowledge. And it was knowledge they had prematurely. And it really caused them to get into sin. In fact, the scripture said that man's heart was evil continually. Mm-hmm. And they would go to bed trying to figure out what more wicked thing can I do when I get up in the morning. You know, their whole existence was all about wickedness. And the devil empowered that by revealing knowledge to them they had no business having. And so at this point, Noah found grace and favor in the eyes of Yahweh, because Yahweh said, you know what? I am done with this group of people. In fact, the scripture said it repented him that he ever made man, because all was going on was just wickedness and violence all over the planet. And so what happened? Noah was a just man, perfect in his generations. And so the Most High gave him instruction, and he built an ark and got 7 pairs of the clean animals, 2 pair of the unclean animals. They boarded the ark, and all life was destroyed. Him and his family were spared the flood, and the earth was destroyed of all living things. Again, we're just laying this foundation to really make this transition clear for everybody. So after the flood, the nation of the world were repopulated, and they came through the sons of Noah. He had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So from these 3 men, all the world was repopulated. So what we have on the timeline now, the nation of the earth stemmed from 3 sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So all of man is still on the same line. They're still separated from the Most High, right? We're still separated from Yah. You know, there's no real communication with him, even though the scriptures talks about the earth being repopulated by, through Noah and through his sons. There was still no one that was truly walking with him. Now we do hear about Enoch, who walked with the Most High, and his walk was so good that the scripture says, he was just walking and kicking it with Yahweh, and next thing you know, he was not, because Yahweh took him. He said, man, you need to come on up here because the world is crazy. I need you to just come up here with me. And so he's one of the first people that did not die. He was just translated to go and be with the Most High Elohim. So these were rare occasions. Most people's mind was not on the Most High Elohim. And this means primarily that we could not just call upon him and have direct access to him. That avenue had not been created, right? Since man had fallen, there was no doorway, no avenue to just reach out and be able to touch him. At this point, after the flood, the world's empires began to form. They started with Babylon. You had Egypt and different places began to grow. And last week we looked at the first empire, and that was Babylon, and we looked at the Tower of Babel. We're going to do a real quick synopsis on that. So the first Babylon was the first empire in the world. They were based out of Mesopotamia, and they were ruled by the Semiramis. And these people came together to challenge Yahweh. And they built the Tower of Babel, and they all spoke one language. And they all followed their leader, Nimrod, to challenge Yahweh and to prove their greatness. Yahweh saw what they were doing. He said, this is not getting ready to happen. And so he confused their languages. And this caused all the people to be scattered over the face of all the earth. But the key to this right here is that the plot of the whole world coming together as one to rebel against our Creator was not seen in history again. Right? This was ceased. They had other nations that came up and was trying to conquer the world, but there was never a time when all of mankind joined their forces together and say, we're going to try to take out the Most High Elohim. The first world empire started with Nimrod, Cush's son, and his mother/wife, Semiramis. They were the ones that started this pagan religion. They began the father and mother God worship. It all began with them. So anytime you see a religion that has father God, mother God, son of God, now this is the foundation, this is the form that paganism takes. It involves 3 or more gods that's being worshiped, and they're going to almost always have a mother God. So when they scattered over the face of the earth, when the people left Babylon, they took their pagan gods with them. Mm-hmm. So everything that they learned at the Tower of Babel and how to worship paganism, right? How to worship this polytheism, all of those ideas went with them, right? The only thing that changed was the names. So in Babylon, you had the sun god, which was Nimrod. You had the moon goddess, Semiramis, and the son of God, Tammuz. In Egypt, his name was Osiris. The moon goddess was Isis, and the son of God was Horus. In Greece, Dionysus, the moon goddess Artemis, and the son of God Apollo. And it's interesting, getting a little bit ahead of myself, but notice NASA used a lot of Greek gods for their spaceships, right? The Apollo missions, right? There's a reason for that. Very paganistic in terms of what they were working on. And in Rome, you had Bacchus, moon goddess Diana, and the son of God Apollo. Again. And then when you get to Roman Catholicism, this is where a lot of trouble starts, right? And we're going to deal with this in more detail in future lessons. But you need to understand that their form of worship is pagan. You have the sun god, which they call God. The moon goddess is Virgin Mary, and then the son of God, Jesus. And much of their prayers are really prayed to the Virgin Mary. And that is not scriptural. That is not scriptural. The mediator is Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus, right? It is not the Virgin Mary. And she's not virgin anymore, right? She was virgin when she bore Yeshua, but then she went on to have sons and daughters by Joseph. So they trying to say that she was born sinless, and they trying to say that she remained a perpetual virgin. It is not possible when you're married and you have a husband, you're bearing children naturally. How are you going to remain a virgin, right? It's not possible. So many believe, because of the paganism that's associated with Catholicism, that Christianity stole their beliefs from ancient Egypt. And I'm gonna tell you, earlier in my walk, when I was doing some study of historical religions, I began to have some doubts, because so much of what we had learned in Christianity, it did mirror a lot of the pagan religions that was going back to Babylon. And I'm like, how is this possible? How is this possible? There's so many aspects of Christianity seem to be similar to pagan religions. But it's because the Christianity that we learn, its foundation is pagan. And that's the reason for that. So on the timeline now, we're going to add the first Babylon and the beginning of paganism and Satan worship. So it's important that you understand that, because now all of the world is into pagan and satanic worship. The whole world. So Satan at this point is basically being worshiped as God on the planet. So again, the beginning of father and mother God worship. This is a very important time in history that gets glossed over. So you must understand the impact of this period in history on the world's pagan religions, or you will become confused. This is the thing that, as I was saying before, I was confused because I did not, at that time, have a clear understanding of the origins of paganism and how that impacted the world's religions. And I did not understand the way, and I'm saying the way the Bible teaches it in the book of Acts. and with the history of the Torah. I didn't have that at that time. And so I became somewhat disillusioned in my faith because I felt like, man, there's something wrong going on because what we are being taught is just not lining up. So it's still important to remember that all of mankind is moving on the timeline in separation from Yahweh. There's no connection to him. Yahweh at this point does not have a people. All the people are still moving on this timeline, and they're still worshiping under the form of polytheism, worshiping pagan gods, and serving the devil. So as you look now at the bloodlines, Nimrod and Egypt came from the bloodline of Ham. You have Greece and Rome come from the bloodline of Japheth. You can trace this history by tracing all the children of Shem, Ham, and Japheth and where they migrated to. And you can see this in the book of Genesis, chapter 10. It talks about the table of nations and where all of their children settled, Gog and Magog and all the different descendants of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and where they settled. You have something?
You mentioned a word a couple of times, and I think it just needs some definition. Polytheism.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So you have monotheism and you have polytheism. Polytheism is the worship of multiple gods, right? The greatest commandment, when Yeshua was asked, what is the greatest commandment? He said, Hear, O Israel, our Elohim is one, right? Hear, O Israel, our Elohim is one, monotheistic. But everybody else in the world were polytheistic, which means they worship more than one God, okay? So now we're looking at Shem. And basically what came from Shem is this people group that the Most High is going to call out unto himself. You have Abraham, and Abraham received this promise starting in Genesis 12. Now Yahweh has said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curse thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. This is the essence of the Abrahamic covenant. So through Abraham, all the families of the earth shall be blessed. In other words, all families have access to this blessing once the Abrahamic covenant was fulfilled. So this was Yahweh's promise. He wanted to be able to bless the families of the earth, and he was going to use this one man to get a foothold back into the earth. Because remember now, at this point in time, prior to Abram, all families of the earth were worshiping the devil. They were all into polytheism, worshiping multiple gods. So this is a direct prophecy of Yeshua HaMashiach, who would bless the whole world. The key was Yeshua HaMashiach. When Yah made this covenant with Abraham, it's because Yahuwah was still working to fulfill his first prophecy he made in Genesis 3:15, talking about the heel, the seed of the woman was going to bruise the head of the devil, of the devil's seed. And so this is what the Most High is working on. He's building himself up to complete that mission of Genesis 3:15. And the key was going to come through Abraham. So now we have on a timeline a covenant made with Abraham. So we're just moving on through. Yahuwah is using him and his line to bless all the families of the earth. So of the three lineages, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, Shem's line was going to be the most important because the called out people was going to come from Shem, and it started with Abraham. So the covenant moves from Abraham to his son Isaac, and then from Isaac to his son Jacob. And then Jacob has 12 sons who are called the 12 tribes of Israel. Then Jacob's name is changed to Israel in Genesis chapter 32. So this is the foundation of a nation. These three men, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, and his 12 sons, each became tribes. So Jacob and his 12 sons moved to Egypt, where they grew in number and were enslaved. This is where they stayed there. They began to grow in that land. They went there really with a red carpet treatment being made available to them. But then once the pharaohs began to die, they began to take advantage of them. And so at this point now we have the establishment of the 12 tribes of Israel. They're not a nation yet, but they're growing. They're growing. Now we move into the book of Exodus and the call of Moshe, right? The call of Moses. So Moshe delivers the children of Israel during the prophetic time of Passover. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about this. I have a teaching on the Passover, but this is a prophetic time, very important. And it's really is fulfilled through Mashiach. But this is how they got delivered through Passover. You know, the blood was put upon the doorpost. The death angel came in and killed the firstborn of all the Egyptians. And then they were allowed to go free after 10 horrific plagues landed on Egypt. And just a note, those plagues that were on Egypt are much like the plagues that will be given over to the earth in the book of Revelation. Egypt was just a type and a shadow of what's coming to the world. But notice what happened. When they were in Egypt and the plagues were landing in Egypt, they were in Goshen, but they were sheltered in Goshen, right? Those plagues did not touch them. And I truly believe that the Most High is going to spare his people from the punishment of this world during the time when he's pouring out judgments, you know, the different bowl judgments and trumpets being poured out on this earth. Those are for punishment for those who are rebelling against the Most High Elohim. Those are not for his children. So at this point, we have the Passover being added to the timeline. And now, if you diligently obey my voice and shall guard my covenant, then you shall be in my treasured possession above all the peoples, for all the earth is mine. And you shall be to me a reign of priests and a set apart nation. So those are the words which you are to speak to the children of Israel. So we can see clearly that with all the people groups that's on the planet, the Most High has called out the children of Israel and said, you're going to be a special people to me, a set apart people to me. So it's important that you understand that at this point, all the creation is the Most High. He said, all the world is mine, right? But he has a treasured people that's been called out and separate from all peoples on the face of the earth. So you got to understand, the other people groups, they were not special to the Most High, right? He called out these people to be special to him. And so we got to understand that. And that's one reason why I'm laying this foundation, because I want you to see that there is a difference between being a Hebrew and not, right? Everybody else were pagans. Well, these people were special. So at this time, Yahweh gave the children of Israel his 10 commandments and his law of Moses called the Torah to set them apart from all the nations on the earth. Yahweh promised to bless them if they obeyed above all nations of the earth. And Yahweh promised to curse them if they did not obey his voice and his Torah. And the curse included the transatlantic slave trade. Deuteronomy 28 covers this information in great detail. So if you have questions about that, you should read go to the book of Deuteronomy. You have Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and the 5th book is Deuteronomy. Go to chapter 28. The first 15 verses talk about the promises. But then you go from 15 through 68, and he outlines the curses. And one of the things you're going to find in there is that you're going to take them back into Egypt. Egypt represents slavery. He said, I'm going to take you back by way of ships. You're going to be sold as male and female slaves, and there's going to be no one there to redeem you. So that is, in fact, many of the things he said there in Deuteronomy 28, he said, these shall be a sign unto you. So if you want to know the true people of the book, you go to Deuteronomy 28 and you see the curses. You're going to be the tail and not the head. You're going to be below and not above. You're going to be a borrower and not a lender. You're going to have all these different things that he says is going to be a characteristic of his people who disobey him. And you can see clearly that the people that are in Israel right now, they don't meet those conditions. You have a question?
Yeah. So you saying first slave, one of the curses, something like that?
I'm saying that slavery was part of the curse.
Right.
Right, absolutely.
One of them.
It was one of the curses. Yes. They're going to be taken out of their land. They're going to go into slave trade.
Right.
They're going and all these different things. That's part of the curses. Absolutely. And our ancestors experienced that, which is how we got here in the United States in the first place. That's right there in Deuteronomy 28. So you got to understand that the people group that's in Israel right now, they control so many industries. They control banking, right? They control a lot of trade and Hollywood and a lot of different things. They control those things. And so they don't meet the condition of Deuteronomy 28. So they adopted this faith, but they're not the people of the book. And they even distance themselves from being ancient Israel. They don't claim to be ancient Israel. In fact, I watched the video, and I'm going to play it during one of my lessons. They were talking to this black group of people, this one-ish person, and he said, "You are the people of the book. You are ancestors of the ancient Israel." And they were all clapping, and they were all excited to find out that they were truly the people of the book, right? But then he asked them a question. So he said, "Do you want to remain ancient Israel, or do you want to convert to Judaism?" Right? So that lets you know right there that they make a distinction between being ancient Israel, which is a descendant of Abraham, or being Jewish, which is something else.
Right.
It's something else, right? So they know, right? They know. So everyone that wants to understand the Bible and the history of Israel should know what he said he would do. You must have a clear understanding of the prophecies of Israel. You're going to find out that these prophecies have not been fulfilled like many people think. So beginning at Exodus chapter 20 through Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, you're going to learn the law of Moses that they were required to follow. And now we know what it means to sin according to the Most High Elohim. It's defined in those books, right? We know now that you can't just do as thou wilt, but the Most High has a clear desire and a way for his people to live. It is outlined in these books. So now we're adding to the timeline, and we're going to mark this on the timeline, but we need to make an important change, before we do that. I got to make some things clear. So before this point, man was all together and walking separate from Yahweh. Everybody was on the same timeline. But when Yahweh remembered his covenant with Abraham, he freed the children of Israel from Egypt and gave them his Torah, which meant that the children of Israel were in covenant with our Creator. They were the only nation on the earth to worship one God. I'm going to say that again. Israel, the children of Israel, this nation, was the only nation on the earth to worship one God. All other nations were worshiping multiple gods. They were into paganism, false religion, and serving the devil. So this is called monotheism. So in school, we were taught this under the word monotheism, which simply means the worship of one God. All of the known world at that time and all empires that followed worship many gods. And this is called polytheism, right? Polytheism, the worship of many gods. So when you look at the timeline, you got other nations, which are called Gentiles, right? So when we go to the timeline, Israel is separate as the only monotheistic nation in the world. Then you have the other nations called Gentiles. So they're still separate from Yahweh. They're still separate. Israel's separate, and the other nations that are Gentiles, they're separate, right? And this is all due to the situation with Adam. You know, we're still separated from the Most High Elohim because of the sin of Adam. But Israel is still Yahweh's chosen people, right? They're chosen, and that's what makes them different. They still the sin problem hasn't been solved yet, but they are still the people of the Most High Elohim. So why are they Yahweh's chosen people, right? Why is Israel? And I'm not talking about the people that's over there in the Middle East. I'm talking about these people we're talking about here, the people of the book. Why are they Yahweh's chosen people? They are chosen because they are the people he chose to fulfill all of his word through. All of his prophecies from Genesis to Revelation will be fulfilled through these people and no one else, right? These people are the chosen. The Bible was written to these people, for these people, and about these people. And we're going to deal with this in future lessons, but this is why the Most High would have never chosen pagan people, right? Greeks, to be in charge of his faith. He just never would have done that, right? He knew they were pagan. And so what they ended up doing was mixing their pagan beliefs into the religion and created something else other than what's in the Bible. And that's the problem. But I'm going to table that for later. So they were used, talking about the children of Israel, they were used to carry out the covenant that Yahuwah established with Abraham. These people and these people alone. They were chosen to make the one true God of creation known to all the nations of the world. And they had a season where they did a really good job of that too. David had a great kingdom, but Solomon had a powerful kingdom. Because under Solomon had peace throughout his whole reign. And you had kings from all over the world that was coming, striking bargains with Solomon just to get his wisdom. And he was giving them wisdom in order to be able to expand their kingdom. And so he was powerful. He was powerful. He was literally exporting what it meant to be Hebrew. And that's what the Most High wanted. He wanted his faith to be shared out throughout the whole world. But unfortunately, because he married so many women, and he married pagan women, he allowed those pagan gods to be worshipped in his kingdom. And that was a downfall. So the children of Israel are chosen to this day to fulfill all the remaining prophecies found in scripture about them. And they will be fulfilled. So Yahuwah chose a very small nation of people and made them victorious over many larger opponents like Egypt and those who occupied the land that they were promised. In fact, some of the lands they conquered had giants in the land. And in the book of Numbers, when he first called them to go and take the land, they were afraid because there were giants in the land. But 40 years later, after all that generation died in the wilderness, Joshua was able to lead them into that land. They conquered those lands because the Most High was with them. And all those lands and those nations were afraid of Israel because they knew that the Elohim of Israel was real and he was powerful. And so that's how he was making a difference with them. They were worshiping false gods, but Israel had the true Elohim, and he was kicking butt and taking names. So now, on the timeline, we have Israel as a nation. We have Israel as a nation now. It's being added to the timeline. So let me be clear. I mentioned it before, but I want to make this crystal clear. When I say Israel, anytime I'm speaking about Israel, unless I state clearly, when I say Israel, I am not referring to the people we know of today in our modern nations. I am not referring to these people. These are not the people of the book. The Israelites of the Bible are not the same people as the Israeli nation in our secular world. They're not the same. Many times they distinguish themselves from ancient Israel and call themselves Jews because they are not the people of the book. They're not the people of the Bible. Don't get that confused, right? Do not confuse the Israelites of the Bible with the Israelis in our secular world. They're not the same group of people. So as we look at the timeline now, you can see that it's been separated. Israel as a nation is on this yellow timeline. As we move forward, you have Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome on this red timeline. These are known as Gentile nations, also known as strangers or other nations. They are different from Israel. Israel is a covenant nation. These folks are not. They're strangers. So everyone except Israel is a stranger. Israel is not a part of these strange nations. You have Israel up here on the yellow timeline. So we're going to make that clear. We're going to be adding some additional things to Israel's timeline. So now we're moving forward. You've got, again, these Greeks, these strangers on this red timeline. You have Israel on the yellow. But because Yeshua has not shown up yet, you still have both lines separate from Yahweh. You know, they have not been born again yet. So we have a covenant nation of Israel, and you have the strangers, but they're still separated spiritually from Yahweh. So Yahuwah is working through Israel to establish his covenant to bless the world through. He's working through Israel and Israel alone. He never chose another nation to work through. He's always had his plan to work through his people, the children of Israel, of the seed of Abraham. So the rest of the world is worshiping Satan through his many names. You got Ra, Marduk, Zeus. For the women, you got Isis, Ishtar, Gaia. These are just samplings of some of the gods and goddesses that Satan is using to deceive the world. So what do you have now? The focus remains on Israel. And we're going to continue to focus some key events on them so you can understand some critical things that's happening in their history. Because Yahuwah is only dealing with them. And I want to stress this because, again, the faith was hijacked by pagans. And they've got the world thinking that even Christianity today is a Christianity that was originally given to the saints, and it's not. This Christianity that we have today is more pagan than not. It's closer to paganism than it is anything in the scriptures. The things that they're experiencing on Sundays, if Yeshua came down here, he would like, what is this? Where are my people at? Because they're not in these churches on Sunday. So later we're going to learn about the one world religion and examine how the world's religions began to unite under Satan. So some additional history of Israel. We have the first king of Israel, which is King Saul. We had King David and the unification of all tribes. And then Solomon and the building of the temple. Well, he was a third king. And he built the temple, and he had a great rule for a while until he got away from the Most High Elohim. After that, you had Jeroboam in the north with the 10 tribes that split away. And you had Rehoboam in the south, and he was over Judah. So you had a splitting of the kingdom. And eventually they both fell because of the sins of the kings and the nations, and that led them into captivity. The 10 tribes in the north were captured by Assyria, and then later they were scattered to the four corners of the earth, right? They all scattered. They never came back. Once they scattered, that was it for them. But then in the south, Judah, consisting of Judah and Benjamin, they were captured by Babylon. They spent some time in Babylon, and eventually they were released, and many of them came back, and they reestablished Israel, but some remained in Babylon, and they called them Greeks because they just kind of took on the Greek mentality. So these are some important events that should be understood in order for you to understand the end time prophecy. There's many things that are going to happen in the end time, but if you don't understand these events and it's the separation of the kingdoms, you're not going to understand it. That's why some people are thinking today, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, that Israel in 1948 was a fulfillment of prophecy, but that was not a fulfillment of prophecy. We're going to deal with that in a minute. So let me get your attention on this part, because this is important. Many people skip from the captivity and move directly to the birth of Yeshua HaMashiach. And they're missing much valuable information between Israel's being scattered and the birth of the Mashiach. There's a lot of history that goes on here and a lot of prophecies that are given here that many people in the church don't get and don't understand. And if you don't understand that information, you're not going to understand the end time. You're not going to get it. So this is the point where the Bible becomes misunderstood. This section here, from Israel and Judah going into captivity to the birth of the promised Messiah. So this, on our timeline, we're going to mark this as the point where the Bible is most misunderstood, right? It's most misunderstood in this section here. And it's because these key books, critical books, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Malachi, Ezra, and even other prophets are not being read. Joel, there's a lot of critical prophets that are not studied. And if you don't read and study and understand those, Zechariah, major stuff in Zechariah about end time events. You don't understand these things, you're not going to know what's going on. You're going to be lost. We're looking at this fella, right? That's why people have a false expectation of what is to come in the end time. They don't understand because they have not read the prophets. So while Israel and Judah are in that captivity, Yahuwah prophesied of two important events. The first prophecy was of a redeemer, a Messiah that would come. He told them, you're going to have a deliverer. It's going to come, much like the first deliverer, Moshe. He's going to come. And so they were looking for him to come, but they didn't know how he's going to come. But one of the critical things is they said that he was going to be the son of David. And if you know anything about David, David was a warrior. And so when they were looking for their Messiah to come, they were looking for him to come as a warrior. And it was prophesied he would come that way. And the reality is, Yeshua is going to come as the son of David. But that is the end time prophecy of Yeshua, coming as the son of David. But he also had prophecies in Isaiah and other places where he was going to come as a suffering savior. Isaiah 53, Psalms 22, talked about him being wounded and the things he would have to go through, his clothes being parted and cast lots for. So they had a misunderstanding because they were looking for the son of David to show up to deliver them from their captives and to reestablish their kingdom. And that's going to happen. But it wasn't going to happen in his first mission. His first mission was to bruise the head of the devil and to bring deliverance to those who were in sin. That was his first mission. And so you got to understand that. Then the second thing, Yeshua prophesies that a time would come in the last days where he would gather Israel and Judah and restore them together and make them one kingdom, where the prophesied Messiah would reign over them in peace. That's the son of David. That second part is the son of David. He shows up in the end time. Let's deal with that. Because if you do not understand these prophecies, you do not understand what is in the Bible and what will happen in the future. So you see this was a major front page of all the papers across the world in 1948. It says what? The state of Israel is born. And because people didn't know their Bible, many believe the second part was fulfilled in 1948. But this is an error due to failure to understand the scriptures. The prophecy says Israel and Judah will be restored and put into one kingdom. That is all 12 tribes. Now notice here now, what do we call the people in Israel today? Jews or Jewish, right? That's all they go by. Where does Jew come from? Judah. That's one of the tribes. That's one of the tribes, Judah, right? The tribe of Judah. That's just one tribe. Just one. When you look at the prophecy in Ezekiel 37, it says, and they shall no longer be two nations, nor shall they ever be divided into two kingdoms again. So what was in the two kingdoms? In the north, under Jeroboam, they separated, and 10 tribes went in the north. And then in the south, Judah was Judah and Benjamin, and actually part of the Levites went down there too. So you had 10 tribes in the north, 2 in the south. So when he says, I'm going to bring them back together again, 2 plus 10 is 12, right? Not just one tribe, but all 12 tribes are going to come together. So just because they named this secular nation Israel does not mean it aligns to Bible prophecy. It is not fulfilling Bible prophecy. All the tribes did not come back. So prophecy could not have been fulfilled. The word says 12 tribes. It can't be fulfilled with just one. So on a timeline, we're going to put the promises to Israel. And on that timeline, we're going to say the promises to Israel to restore all 12 tribes, not just one tribe, but all 12 tribes. So this is a crucial part to understand if you're going to understand the Bible. If you don't get this, what I'm just going over right now, you're lost. You're going to be lost. And you'll be believing that people who say they're the people are the people. So as we look at the timeline, we move on to the birth of the promised Messiah, Yeshua HaMashiach. And this by far is the most important event on the timeline. So we look at the full timeline, we have the birth of Messiah here, and this is the beginning of the fulfillment of the covenant that Yahweh made with Abraham. So we have the birth of Messiah, we have his 3.5-year ministry, and then we have his death, which was all prophesied. And on the cross, he stated, it is finished, which means the price has been paid for sin. Remember now, you have both lines, the yellow line which represented Israel and the red line which represented the nations. They still remain in a state of separation from the Most High Elohim. Even though you had a covenant people, they still were not in fellowship, true fellowship with the Most High Elohim, because they were still sinners, right? But Yeshua says, it is finished. 3 days later, he appears to Mary Magdalene. He's alive. The angels are there, right, in his tomb. And so now, on the timeline, we have the death, burial, and resurrection of Messiah, right? He's now resurrected. And what does that mean? The Abrahamic covenant has been fulfilled. Now all families of earth can be blessed through him, right? This is the timeline now. It's looking real good. There's some great things that are getting ready to happen. So we can now bring the two timelines together. And I'm going to explain that. You've got, again, the pagan line here. You've got the Hebrew line here, the nation of Israel. And there's a way that they're going to be able to come together. Basically, now all of man is able to take part of the covenant with Yahuwah. It's possible for all of man to take part in this covenant because of the completed work of Yeshua HaMashiach. Now notice what it says here. They're able to, right? They're able to take part, but it doesn't mean that they're all going to. They're not all going to. You have a right to accept Yeshua HaMashiach, right? You have a right. You have access, but it doesn't mean that everybody's going to choose him. And so he's made a way for the nations of the world through Yeshua HaMashiach to come to him. They're able to, but not everybody will. Not everybody will. So we're going to put a pin in this part right here. And then next week, we're going to talk about the rise of the one world religion. We're going to use this portion right here to be our springboard to get us into the rise of the one world religion. But I wanted to have that backdrop of the history of the religions of the world and how Israel is separate and different from the nations and the strangers of the world. They're not the same people group. And even with Yeshua coming, right, and opening up a door for the nations to be able to come in, there's still the separation of the Hebrew people from the world. There's still the chosen group, right? And that never changed. They're still the chosen group. And so people want to say replacement theology and a lot of different things. No replacement of those people. Those are still Yahweh's people. You got a question?
So, okay, it say the rise of one world religion.
Mm-hmm.
And you should talk about when you talk about the Masons and stuff like that.
Well, part of Masons got part of them. Yeah. Yeah. The Masons got something to do with it. But the one real religion is basically going to be the situation where the whole world is going to be worshiping the same. Okay, we're going to deal with that in more detail. I'll make it plain. Yeah, I'm going to make it plain on next week. We're talking about the rise of one world religion, where everybody's going to be worshiping the same way, but it's going to be in error. It's going to be wrong. If they're going to be worshiping, they're going to be worshiping the devil. Okay? All right. So we're talking about today the Elohim of Israel. Why? Because he is the one true Elohim. All right?
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. Just want to remind everybody, get a chance to go to Dr. Russ E. Hoover and get a chance to see, we got several videos there now. We're working on this current events topic right now. We've got the completed work of the book of Genesis. We've got a great portion of the book of Exodus completed already. So you definitely want to get a chance to go there. Again, that's Dr. Russ E. Hoover. Go to the YouTube channel and do all those YouTube-y things, right? Do that, subscribe. Make sure you watch the videos and hit that thumbs up. Hit the bell of notification so you can be notified when we're dropping new videos. And leave your questions and comments. I've been getting a lot of questions, a lot of comments, and just having great interaction with our viewers on YouTube. So I'm really loving that. So get a chance to do that, and it'll be a real blessing to the ministry. And so with that, we're going to go ahead and get ready to pray out the Rana benediction. Yivareka Yahweh Vidishmaneka, Ya'er Yahweh Panavaleka Viakameka, Isa Yahweh Panavaleka Viasameka, Shalom. May Yahweh bless you and keep you. May Yahweh make his face shine upon you and show you his favor. And may Yahweh lift his countenance upon you and do what? Give you shalom, peace, nothing missing, nothing broken, and nothing lacking. All right. So I just want to remind all of you now that greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. And I tell you, I was all in that final book this week. So I did a lot of cheating this week. I got to tell you, brother, this is what I discovered. We win, and the devil loses. All right? So listen, till next time. This is Dr. Russ E. Hoover. We are signing off. Shabbat Shalom. All right. Absolutely.